The Royal Connection, uncovering Prince Andrew's ties to Epstein.
Well, this is what we do know about Prince Andrew and the businessman and convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. We know Prince Andrew got to know Jeffrey Epstein in 1999. We know that he saw him fairly regularly for some period after that.
Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, has been embroiled in controversy surrounding his association with Jeffrey Epstein. While the prince has denied any wrongdoing, there are several connections between the two men that have raised suspicions about Prince Andrew's involvement in Epstein's sex trafficking operations. Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein met in the 1990s. Their friendship was facilitated by Maxwell, Epstein's longtime girlfriend and associate. Maxwell and Prince Andrew had known each other since the 1980s, and she is believed to have introduced the prince to Epstein. One of the most prominent allegations against Prince Andrew came from Virginia Gulf, who alleges that she was trafficked by Epstein and forced to have sex with Prince Andrew on multiple occasions when she was just 17 years old.
We know that Prince Andrew had a relationship of some sort with Virginia Roberts. She is the woman that Prince Andrew's got his arm around in this photo, dated 2001. At this point, she's 17. She subsequently alleged that Prince Andrew had sex with her 3 times.
He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it.
Gulf's allegations have been corroborated by several witnesses and flight records. Prince Andrew has consistently denied any wrongdoing, but his denials have been met with skepticism. In 2019, the prince gave a disastrous interview with the BBC, in which he attempted to defend his relationship with Epstein. This interview was widely panned, and Prince Andrew's explanation for his actions were deemed unsatisfactory.
One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No. The problem was the fact that once he had been convicted,
You stayed with him?
I stayed with him. And that's the bit that as it were, I kick myself for on a daily basis, because it was not something that was becoming of a member of our family. And we try and uphold the highest standards and practices, and I let the side down. Simple as that.
The allegations against Prince Andrew have had a significant impact on his reputation and the reputation of the royal family. The prince has stepped back from his royal duties, and there have been calls for him to be stripped of his title. As we reflect on the complex and disturbing relationship between Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein, it's clear that there are still many unanswered questions. But one thing is for certain, the royal family must do more to address the allegations against Prince Andrew and ensure that those responsible for enabling Epstein's crimes are held accountable. So thank you for listening, and follow for episode 6, The Enablers, uncovering the network of those who facilitated Epstein's crimes. Thanks, guys. The Enablers, uncovering the network of those who facilitated Epstein's crimes. Episode 6. As we continue to investigate the Jeffrey Epstein Saga, we turn our attention to the enablers who facilitated his crimes. These individuals, often motivated by greed, ambition, or a desire for power, played a crucial role in enabling Epstein's sex trafficking operation. Who were the enablers who facilitated Epstein's crimes, and what motivated them to do so? Jeffrey Epstein's crimes were facilitated by a network of enablers who were motivated by various factors, including financial gain, social status, and personal relationships. The key enablers were Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime girlfriend and associate, who helped recruit and groom young girls for a sex trafficking operation. Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent who supplied Epstein with young girls and was accused of rape and sexual assault of minors. Prince Andrew, a member of the British royal family who was friends with Epstein and allegedly had sex with one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Gulf. Other associates and employees of Epstein's staff, including pilots, drivers, and assistants who helped him facilitate the crimes and provided a veneer of legitimacy to his operations. The motivations. Financial gain. Many of Epstein's enablers benefited financially from their association with him, either through direct payments or by gaining access to his wealth and influence. Social status. Epstein's enablers were often drawn to his wealth, power, and social status, which often provided them with a sense of prestige and importance. Personal relationships. Some of Epstein's enablers, like Ghislaine Maxwell, were close friends or romantic partners, which can make it difficult to recognize or report wrongdoing. Psychological manipulation. Epstein was known to be a skilled manipulator, able to use his charm, wealth, and influence to control and exploit those around him. It's worth noting that enabling behavior can be complex and multifaceted. It may involve a combination of those factors. Additionally, enabling behavior can be difficult to recognize, especially when it involves someone who is charismatic, wealthy, or powerful. How did the enablers use their positions of power and influence to help Epstein evade justice? Enablers of Jeffrey Epstein, including those in positions of power and influence, played a significant role in helping him evade justice. These enablers used various tactics to facilitate Epstein's crimes and protect him from accountability. He had protection through social status. Epstein's associations were influential people, such as Prince Andrew and former U.S. President Bill Clinton. They contributed to his ability to evade justice. His social status and connections created a protective barrier, making it difficult for authorities to hold him accountable. Intimidation and fear. Epstein and his enablers used intimidation and fear to silence victims and witnesses. These tactics, including threats, blackmail, and coercion, it makes it difficult for those who knew about Epstein's crimes to come forward. The network of enablers. Epstein had a network of enablers, including Ghislaine Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, and others, who helped him recruit and groom victims. These enablers used their own positions of power and influence to facilitate Epstein's crimes. Manipulation and deception. Epstein and his enablers used manipulation and deception to lure victims into his trials. They presented themselves as trustworthy and friendly, gaining the victim's confidence before exploiting them. These tactics used by Epstein and his enablers allowed him to evade justice for many years, perpetrating his crimes and causing harm to numerous victims. What are the consequences of the enablers' actions? The consequences: prolonged suffering for the victims. The enablers' actions allowed Epstein's abuse to continue for years, causing irreparable harm to numerous victims. Erosion of trust. The involvement of high-profile individuals and institutions in Epstein's crimes has eroded trust in those entities and the systems that failed to hold them accountable. Lack of accountability. The enablers' actions have made it challenging to hold Epstein and others accountable for their crimes, allowing them to evade justice for far too long. Cultural and societal implications. The Epstein case has highlighted the pervasive nature of sexual abuse and exploitation, particularly among the powerful and wealthy. Holding enablers accountable. Investigations and prosecutions. Authorities must thoroughly investigate and prosecute enablers who facilitated Epstein's crimes. Civil lawsuits. Victims should pursue civil lawsuits against enablers to hold them financially accountable for their role in facilitating Epstein's crimes. Public exposure. Enablers must be publicly exposed for their actions, ensuring that their reputations reflect their complicity in Epstein's crimes. Institutional reforms. Institutions that enabled Epstein's crimes, such as schools, charities, and financial institutions, must implement reforms to prevent similar cases in the future. Education and awareness. Educating the public about the warning signs of abuse and exploitation can help prevent similar cases and promote a culture of accountability. As we explore the world of Epstein's enablers, we'll examine the complex web of relationships and deceit that enabled his crimes to go undetected for so long. We saw the evidence, we saw the witnesses and the experts, and provided detailed analysis of the implications of the enabler's actions. And in episode 7, we're going to talk about the aftermath, uncovering the lasting impact of Epstein's crimes. So thank you for listening, and follow for part 7. In our final episode, part 7, we examine the lasting impact of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes on his victims, their families, and the broader community. What are the long-term effects of Epstein's abuse on his victims, and how have they struggled to rebuild their lives? The long-term effects of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse on his victims are severe and far-reaching. Many victims have reported experiencing intense anxiety, fear, and emotional trauma, which can lead to a state of constant hyperarousal, making it difficult for them to feel safe or trust others. Psychological trauma. The abuse suffered at the hands of Epstein has led to long-lasting psychological trauma for his victims. This trauma can manifest in various ways. PTSD. Many victims have developed PTSD, which can cause flashbacks, nightmares, and severe anxiety. Depression and anxiety. The trauma experienced by Epstein's victims can also lead to depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. Low self-esteem. The abuse can erode a victim's sense of self-worth, leading to low self-esteem and self-blame. Rebuilding their lives has been a significant challenge for Epstein's victims. Many have struggled to regain trust. As far as trusting others, especially those in positions of power, has been a significant challenge for many of the victims. To find emotional closure. The trauma experienced by Epstein's victims can make it difficult for them to find emotional closure and move on with their lives. Seeking justice. Many victims have struggled to seek justice, facing significant barriers, including intimidation, shame, and fear of retaliation. Despite these challenges, many of Epstein's victims have shown remarkable resilience and courage in seeking justice and rebuilding their lives. Some have found solace in support groups, therapy, and advocacy work, helping others who have experienced similar trauma. What steps can be taken to prevent similar cases of abuse and exploitation from happening in the future? Preventing similar cases of abuse and exploitation requires a multifaceted approach that involves individuals, communities, organizations, and governments. Here are some of the steps that can be taken. Individual actions. Number 1, educate yourself. Learn about the signs of abuse and exploitation and the tactics used by perpetrators. Number 2, speak up. If you witness or suspect abuse, report it to authorities. Number 3, support survivors. Believe and support those who have experienced abuse. Community actions. Create safe spaces. Establish safe and supportive environments where individuals feel comfortable sharing their experiences. Organize community events. Host events and campaigns to raise awareness and abuse about exploitation. Support local organizations. Partner with organizations that provide services and support to survivors. Make organized actions. Implement policies and procedures. Provide training. Support employee well-being. The government action. To strengthen laws and regulations. To enact and enforce those laws. Increase funding for organizations that support survivors and prevent abuse. Establish effective reporting mechanisms for abuse and exploitation. Technological actions. Develop reporting tools. Create online platforms and tools for reporting abuse. Utilize AI-powered monitoring systems to detect and prevent online abuse. Promote online safety. Educate individuals about online safety and their best practices. Collaborative actions. Foster collaboration between law enforcement, social services, and other agencies. Public-private partnerships. Establish partnerships between governments, organizations, and businesses. Global cooperation. Collaborate internationally to share best practices, coordinate efforts, and prevent abuse and exploitation. As we conclude our investigation into the Jeffrey Epstein Saga, we reflect on the lasting impact of his crimes and the importance of awareness-raising efforts to prevent similar cases from happening in the future. The Epstein case has laid bare the dark underbelly of power, privilege, and corruption, highlighting the ways in which those with wealth and influence can exploit and abuse others with impunity. But it has also shown us the resilience and courage of survivors who have come forward to share their stories and demand justice. Their bravery has sparked a global conversation about the need for accountability, transparency, and systematic change. As we move forward, it's essential that we continue to shine a light on the networks of power and privilege that enable abuse and exploitation. We must hold accountable those who have facilitated or covered up these crimes and work towards creating a culture that prioritizes empathy, accountability, and justice. This includes supporting survivors and advocates, pushing for policy changes and legislative action, and engaging in ongoing education and awareness-raising efforts. Ultimately, the Jeffrey Epstein Saga serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, accountability, and collective action in preventing abuse and exploitation. As we close this chapter, we commit ourselves to this critical work, driven by the hope of creating a safer, more just world for all. And thank you for listening and following the Jeffrey Epstein Saga. Have a good one, guys.